Hi, I'm Reverend Paula Skiles. I'm the minister at Unity Church of San Marcos in San Marcos, Texas. And this morning I'd like to share some thoughts with you. And I think you've probably heard this statement, and many of us have. The greater the pain, the greater the awakening. Small comfort, really, if any. But I'm sure some of you listening and watching today may be going through some level of suffering or pain. And maybe you're not. Maybe you just have some questions and some level of uncertainty, but you're not finding any answers. So my message today is titled, You Will Know. And is about putting ourselves in a place for the truth to find us. Now, sometimes the conditions of our lives will take us into these transcendent moments of awareness. Andrew Carroll is one of America's experts on wartime correspondence, and he authored this, Grace Under Fire, Letters of Faith in Times of War, which is a collection of letters from the American Revolution all the way to the war in Iraq. And they deal with spirituality. And one of the things that you as a reader really get to quickly is the idea that is present is that war zones heighten human awareness. And people who are in these experiences are sometimes driven into these electrically charged moments of awareness. Now, these kinds of knowings seem to come out of left field. But these intuitive understandings come many times after some type of discomfort or true suffering that the individual has been through. And my thought today is we don't have to go through suffering. We can put ourselves in a place where we can receive truth. And those are such powerful revelations. And they're so wonderful, and they change our lives. And they make our lives better. And so I would like to share just a thought here. Now, Matthew McConaughey said it this way. He was speaking to a group of graduate students, and he had a realization about his own life and what he wanted out of life. And he says to them, see, I crossed the truth. Now, did I find it? I don't know. I think it found me. Why? Because I put myself in a place to be found. I put myself in a place to receive truth. And so, how can you and I put ourselves in a place to receive truth? It doesn't have to be an extreme difficulty in our lives that takes us to that point or those pivotal points in our life. Because usually when we receive those, our whole life is changed, and we turn from whatever direction we were going. There is a moment like that is described in Luke that Jesus had. He had, and it's eloquently described by Luke, he had one of those transcendent moments of awareness as he was coming into Jerusalem. And many of us think of that as Palm Sunday. But he was coming down from the Mount of Olives, and as he looked upon the city, he literally wept because he saw something that was revealed to him in that moment. Let me share with you this morning what Luke says about it. And this is Luke 19:37-42. Now, as he was now approaching the path down from the Mount of Olives, the whole multitude of the disciples began to praise God joyfully with a loud voice for all the deeds of power that they had seen, saying, Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord. Peace in heaven and glory in heaven the highest. Some of the people there were Pharisees. Now, these individuals could hear these people saying all of this about the king, and oh my gosh, they were just freaking out. And because all they could see is being put under the thumb from the Roman rule and people being subject to all types of torture as a result. And so they're saying to Jesus, Master, tell your disciples to quiet down. And Jesus, having had this understanding as he looked out and he saw this, he says, I tell you, if these were silent, the stones would cry out. And he was weeping. And he said aloud, he said, if you, even you, and he's looking at the city, the holy city that he loves, if even you had only recognized this day the things that make for peace, but now they are hidden from your eyes. Because he knew in that moment that which his work was about, that which was what he had been trying to do, they would never see. They would never see it. And that city would literally be left with no stone unturned. And it would be a desolation. And his heart broke at that moment. Now, if you and I were watching this in a movie, there would be a huge gasp whenever he says this, because that is the type of reaction that Jesus was experiencing. It was so profound. And this is the kind of moment where people have survived a heart attack, or they have had a spouse pass, or a sibling, and they feel like there's this hyper-aware moment, and there's so much more that they're aware of. So much so that it's literally the very stones under their feet are absolutely speaking to them. Now, you might think, well, this is fine for Jesus. He was divine, he's God, all of those types of thoughts. But I want you to think about this. Jesus was always, 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 did you hear the word always? Telling us, you are a child of the living God. These things and greater. And so I remind you, you are a child of the living God. And the divine blueprint for the mind of God, that is our intuition, is in you and every human being. And there's nothing you have to do to earn it. There's nothing you have to do to deserve it. It simply is a part of who you are in the image and likeness of God. And so I think that in that instant, it's important to recognize that Jesus saw so much more than we can probably even be aware. But for you and I, it's important for us to know our intuition, we can receive those truths and we can place ourselves in a place to receive them. I had an opportunity in my earlier life. I was married for close to 30 years, and I had times, a decade or so before I met the man that I would have that wonderful relationship with, that was filled with a lot of people who could not be that person in my life. And so I was experiencing a lot of disquiet and sadness. And I resolved that I was going to sit down and try to figure out what it was that was happening in my life. I wanted to reflect. And knowing the ability to put myself where Spirit could speak to me, I decided to do so. And so I used the words, peace, be still and know. Peace, be still and know. And with each utterance, with each time I said it, my whole body just simply calmed down and it became still. And there was this way in which my words took me within my own being, to that center of my own heart and mind, where God touches our mind. Now remember, these are practices you and I can follow. Anyone can. Because meditation and affirmations, they put our minds in that place where understanding our truth can find us. And so as I began to breathe, I simply opened to that. And as I had created an intention of trying to know what it was that I needed to know, it didn't take long before Spirit spoke into my heart and just said these little words, these simple words: Paula, you are no longer the woman you were. But with those words came understandings of truth on so many different levels. Number one is I understood that my fear of having a similar relationship to the first one that I had had with my husband as a young teenager was absolutely not going to happen again, because I had changed. I was no longer the woman that I was at 17. And the other realization I had was that even if I did have a relationship and we had an argument, it would never be the dragged down, violent types of arguments that I had had in this teenage marriage that came so close to causing harm. And the other thing I realized is that I was different. I had done my work. I had done the work of working on, reflecting on how my behaviors and my belief systems and my attitudes had created a space where I had that type of relationship and I would be in it. And I no longer had those belief systems working in my life. I was no longer the woman I was. It was a turning point in my life, because soon thereafter I met the man that I was to enjoy the rest of my life, or the rest of his life with, because he did eventually pass. But these words, be still, peace, be still and know, are so powerful, and they work. You and I, if we build up that place of trust, where we're willing to just open ourselves, we can place ourselves where truth can find us, where revelation or understandings come to us, so that you will know what it is that you're seeking to understand, and without having to go through all of the effort of discomfort or suffering. Now, maybe all you feel like is you need a little wisdom and guidance. These are still perfect for that. Maybe you don't feel like you can make right decisions, that nothing you do is ever right. Well, that comes more from a different place, but still, this type of thing can and will change that for you. Because the truth is, you are a child of the living Spirit of God. You are a child of the living Spirit. And Jesus was one who kept telling us, these things and greater you can do. You are a child of God. All of those wonderful messages that we have, if you take in nothing else, remember that. Because the very the blueprint of God is imprinted on your mind. The mind of God touches us through our mind. That's intuition. And there are no limits. There are no limits. Because when you and I get beyond our limitations, because we do place them on ourselves, what do we have? What is it that's beyond limitation? It's limitless possibilities. Now, sometimes it doesn't feel that way, right? I understand. Like, if you're the person who's been laid off from work and you're feeling the pressure of low or no income, it's hard to see how what has just happened to you can possibly ever be a benefit. There's a little axiom I saw on Facebook, and I'll share it with you. It says, you and I normally can't possibly know in advance the blessing that will be born out of the situations which would look like the universe was messing with you. However, Peter Crone said something I think is appropriate. He said, we are not victims of life, we are beneficiaries to it. Hold that idea, you're not a victim. And by you and I holding that something has occurred and it shouldn't have been that way, we place ourselves with limits. We put limits upon what we can receive because we begin to suffer, because we're not able to accept, well, this is what happened. And we tell ourselves stories, or we make up narratives that say this is how it should be, or this is whatever. And it doesn't provide you and I with the ability to move and flow through life when we do those things to ourselves. If you and I place ourselves through things, practices, spiritual practices like meditation and affirmations and things that change or alter our mindset and open us up and reveal those places where understanding dissolves those limitations, there is so much more that we can experience. Be still and you will know exactly what to do and how to do it. And by saying this firmly and quietly, not from a sense of if something's terribly wrong in your life, just from a sense of knowing that the presence of God wants to communicate with you, and you want the communication as well. I invite you that if you haven't, and you maybe have some concerns that someone in your life, maybe you're doing fine, but someone in your life seems to be without direction or needs direction, put yourself into that quiet place. Say their name, whether it's your sister, your spouse, your employer, your cousin, or just a friend. Just say their name. Peace, be still and know. And just know for them that the mind of God that is in you is in them. And there is an energy that can help them to become still and receive their own understandings and awareness. So now I ask you, if you were to place yourself where you could receive truth, as suggested by Mr. McConaughey, what will be the truth of your life? What will be the truth of your life? So once again, we stand at the crossroads of our spiritual journey. And as you are about to go on your way, I would like to share one last idea, one more thought, so to speak, about my message today. You will know. And this is from F. Scott Fitzgerald. Let me share it with you. For what it's worth, it's never too late, or in my case, never too early, to be whoever you want to be. There's no time limit. You can change or stay the same. There are no rules to this thing we call life. We can make the best or worst of it. I hope you make the best of it. And I hope you see things that startle you. I hope you feel things you never felt before. And I hope you meet people with a different point of view. I hope you live a life you're proud of. And I hope you find that you're not. That if you're not, I hope you have the courage to start all over again. God bless you from Unity Church of San Marcos. And may your life be such a revelation that you will know what you seek.